Welcome, dearest Sangha members, to our Path to Awakening Dharma series with our Venerable Khenpo Tenzin. This is our 9th week, and we're really glad that you are continuing to join us and share in all of the wonderful teachings that Khenpo is offering. We will begin our class today in our Yellow Garchen Buddhist Institute prayer book on page 4 and page 5. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Dangwe doje jaje rezondo jinjamado doje panjamba saje lumbo tabro jibega jaje jerpe jadongo janza norje janjan dalo naro dang mabamala juje gambo pamodre ba javando gongba gajo lamo nonje da jo dananana sara damje do lama lapala je so zo lazo yende jamzo ngalawa Dundre donjin rebe gele zo Tenjin zaba lama jeje gozon do jazin lan dan dan Dage ju lambe de dage tamba dan simje je tong jajin bon rebar simje labde zo Meni tashtele Today, we will discussing on the Vajrayana paths and Bumis. Last week we have discussed Bodhisattvas, 10 Bhumis and paths. Today, perhaps this is pretty new for you. Now, for that reason, some part quite hard to understand immediately, but the power of your spiritual wisdom, I believe you can understand vividly. And also, yeah, then the reason I am introduce this 10th Bumis and 5 paths are we are Dharma practitioners, especially Vajrayana vehicle practitioners. So through our practicing, if we understand these Bumis and paths, then it has great benefit. When we practicing, then we will experience these Bumis and paths. At that time, we notice, oh, this is exactly this Bhumi, or this is exactly that path, something like that. And then, as well, anytime we practice Dharma, we have to remember the kindness of three jewels, because they protect us until enlightenment, until we become enlightened. So we have to remember their qualities and their kindness, and then second, we generate bodhicitta, compassion, because anytime we starting Dharma practice, we have to change our minds. This means usually our minds busy for eating, drinking, and so on, sleeping. But those are good things for our body, good things for our life. But the Dharma practice is more important things for future enlightenment. So our practice will become cause of our future enlightenment or not. This is related over bodhicitta. The best thing is every time when we work, talk, sit, eat, drink, we should be mindful on bodhicitta. But if we can't do that each and every moment, at least when we start Dharma practice, when we are begin Dharma practice, we must generate bodhicitta. For that reasons, every the beginning of this teaching, we are pray through this open prayer book, and then after our practice, we should dedicate. The longer or short is depending over time. But whether longer or short, the principle is we should dedicate through our mind. If we dedicate through our mind means we dedicate compassionately and through bodhicitta. Because hunger ghosts, the beings of hunger ghost realm, they are like beggars. They always 24/7 they expect something from us. So if we dedicate compassionately, and then they will get benefit. And also our merit will remain until enlightenment, until we become enlightened or not. This is also big deal, our dedication. So often masters said, when you Dharma practice, you have two responsibilities, which are beginning and end. When you start to practice at that time, generate compassion to bodhicitta, and after you practiced, you should dedicate. So then today I will begin to teach the Vajrayana paths and Bumis. The Vajrayana vehicle consists of special methods to achieve enlightenment. That means in one life and with one body, practitioners can achieve enlightenment through the practices of the Vajrayana vehicle. But in this vehicle, we also must traverse each day, each and every Bhumis, each and every Bhumi and each and every path. In practicing the Vajrayana vehicle to achieve each and every Bhumi and path, first we have to receive empowerment, which we call the ripening empowerment. Vajrayana empowerment ripens once being with the capacity to realize 4 kayas. And then for practicing the Vajrayana vehicle, after taking empowerment, we have to receive instructions, teachings. These are called the liberating instructions. They liberate one's mind from delusion. There is a saying that the 4 greatnesses of Tantra are that it is not confused. It has manifold means it is easier to practice and requires sharper intellect. The first, that it is not confused, means that practitioners who understand well how to practice the Vajrayana, these practitioners are actually practitioners of a higher capacity. Within the Vajrayana vehicle, there still are lower and middling capacities. If we consider only the Vajrayana vehicle, but from the perspective of the other vehicles, these are practitioners of a higher capacity. And then having manifold means this is stating that the Vajrayana has many methods. Through empowerment and through practicing with the 4 chakras, giving rise to the 4 joys. Then there are the 4 limbs of approaching retreat and the 4 moments of Tantra. So there are many methods. Overall, all tantric practice is included in the 4 classes of Tantra. These are the action Tantra, performance Tantra, yoga Tantra, and highest yoga Tantra. The action Tantra, maybe somebody not heard Tantra, performance Tantra and yoga Tantra, we call the 3 lower Tantras. Through the path of these 3 lower vehicles, Vajrayana Tantras, one cannot be completely enlightened. That's why practitioners need to accomplish the highest yoga Tantra. But as you well know, practitioners have to practice from the Sutra Bumis, the 1st through the 10th. And after they achieve the 10th Bhumi, they go on the 11th Bhumi. And according to the sutras, they will attain enlightenment on the 11th Bhumi. But in the Tantra vehicle, it says they still need to practice the 4 classes of Tantra or the Vajrayana vehicle. But this depends on practitioners' capacities. Some practitioners have higher capacities, so they can achieve these bhumis and they can practice these yogas in one life. And then they can achieve Buddhahood in one life through these practices. And then in the Vajrayana vehicle, there are 13 bhumis. and 5 paths. Sometimes there are more Bhumis than these 14, 15, 16, and so on. But first, let us discuss about paths. Just as in the sutras, there are 5 paths. The path of accumulation, the path of journey, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of fulfillment or no more learning. So practitioners on the path of accumulation arouse relative bodhicitta and receive empowerment. Then these practitioners practice the generation stage, which is the cause of the completion stage. Then they practice the 3 kinds of bringing on the path. The first is bringing the Dharmakaya into the experience of death. The second is bringing the Sambhogakaya into the experience of the Pardo. And third, bringing the Dharma Nirmanakaya into the experience of birth. In brief, practitioners of the Vajrayana path of accumulation arouse bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is like a match to light the flame of bliss. So first we must have bodhicitta, and then those who have received the ripening empowerment and who practice properly so that their winds come into the main chakras and channels, remain there and then go through some specific practices, but who have not yet given rise to great bliss. These are the practitioners of the Vajrayana path of accumulation. In brief, these practitioners are Mahayana practitioners because they generate relative bodhicitta, and they should, of course, arouse ultimate bodhicitta. These practitioners are also Vajrayana practitioners because they have received empowerment. The second Vajrayana path is the path of journey. This is when, through practice, the winds enter the avaduti, which is in the central channel, abide there and then dissolve there. And at that time arises some measure of bliss and emptiness. At this time, practitioners have reached the path of journey. This method of practice exists on the path of accumulation. But at that time, even if the winds enter the avadhuti, abide there and then dissolve there. Bliss and emptiness do not arise directly. But on the path of journeying, they do arise. The difference is that then the path of journey has different divisions, but they are all included within three main divisions. First is the Samadhi of physical isolation. This means that the body is free from complexities of activity. That means that these practitioners can see their own body and others' bodies are illusory. And second, these practitioners also practice the Samadhi of the isolation of speech. This means that sounds are like emptiness. They don't have strong perception of sound is truly existing. Third, they have mental isolation, which means the cutting of discursive thoughts. But of course, they cannot do it completely, but they start to practice this. The isolation of the body has many types of visualizations. For instance, the 5 aggregates are visualized as the 5 family Buddhas, or as the single family of great secret, Dharmata. This is one deity. Also, there are 100 Herukas. For example, each of the aggregates is divided into 5, making 25 divisions. Also, the 5 family Buddhas are divided into 5, making another 25. These, together with the divisions of the aggregates, make 50. Then each of the 4 elements or so are divided into 5 deities for a total of 20. And each of the 6 sins also has 5 Buddhas for a total of 30. All these together make 100. For example, in the root of Tantara, it says, the earth is Buddha Lokchana. Water is Buddha Mamaki. Fire is Pandara Vasini. Wind is Samaya Tara. So all of these Yidam deity visualizations of the isolation of a body are visualized step by step. Once the winds enter the avadhuti channel in the center channel, in brief, when practicing the isolation of the body, the 5 aggregates are visualized as the 5 family Buddhas and other Yidam deities, and so on. And at this time, the mind of practitioners is sealed by bliss and emptiness. This mind is not ordinary mind. And as I mentioned earlier about the isolation of speech, it has 3 divisions. These divisions are according to the 3 places: the tip of the nose, the tip of the heart, and the tip of the cigarette. So practitioners single-pointedly focus at the heart chakra, for example. And at that time, the life force winds dissolve into the avadhuti. And from that arises bliss and emptiness. Then all ordinary sound is completely transformed. The reason is that the winds that come from the right and left channels, which are the lalana and the rasana, the right channel and left channel's name. Winds come to the heart chakra. Usually in one day, we breathe in and out 21,600 times. And then we practice Vajrayana, Vajra speech, and Vajra breath. And this breath goes through the 8 petaled lotus of the heart chakra. And at that time, the qualities of the body will increase. And the chakras of the body become clearly evident. And slowly, the winds can be seen moving into the channels. And then slowly, this wind enter into the avadhuti, and then slowly they will open the nodes of the heart chakras channels. Then the isolation of mind. It has 2 divisions. First is that through the power of meditation, the gross winds enter the heart chakra. At that time, a portion of dualistic thinking disappears. The second is that this practitioner can transform the fundamental luminosity into the path of luminosity. And then during the bardo, they can be enlightened as Nirmanakaya. The next is the Vajrayana path of seeing. This actually arises when, through the power of meditation, the winds enter the avadhuti, and this wind dissolve there. In this way, the path of seeing arises. At this time, practitioners start to see non-duality manifestly. Now we just believe. Of course, we cannot judge some practitioners. They can see non-duality manifestly. The path of seeing has two divisions. These are first, the outer condition, which is union with our consort, and then the inner condition, which is dissolution. Then through these powers, the wind dissolves into the avadhuti, and then spontaneously joy arises. And then at that time, these practitioners reach the first bhumi of the Vajrayana. And then second, which is the inner condition, is dissolution. We call the path of complete freedom. So these practitioners give rise to the wisdom of emptiness and bliss. Next is the Vajrayana path of meditation. Through the power of their meditation, the winds of practitioners enter into the central channel and then dissolve there. The Vajrayana path of meditation has 4 divisions. Actually, these divisions are Bhumis. These practitioners purify cumulative obscurations through the ultimate luminosity. And then next is the path of no more learning. These practitioners have accomplished path of meditation and purified all the obscurations of the path of meditation, and then achieve the 7 aspects of union. These are complete enjoyment, union, great bliss, no self-nature, completely filled with compassion, uninterrupted and unceasing, also called Vajra-like Samadhi. Then they become enlightened. Now I will start to introduce the Vajrayana Bumis. Actually, in Vajrayana, there are different numbers of Bumis: 10, 11, 12, 13, and then 14, 15, 16. There are different enumerations. Today I will introduce the 16. Usually in the Vajrayana, they count 13 Bumis. In the Sutara system, they have 11. The 11th Bhumi is the Buddha's Bhumi, and other 10 Bhumis are the Bodhisattva's Bhumis. Bodhisattva Bhumis. In the Vajrayana, it is said that the 13th Bhumi is the Buddha's stage, but there are different vehicle tantras like the Kalachakra and so others. And in the old and new traditions, the Bhumis are identified a little differently. But everything is included in the 16 Bhumis. So I will introduce them in this way. So these 16 Bhumis are actually related to appearance, increase, and attainment. Another way to say it is vivid, radiance, brilliant, expansion, and complete fulfillment. The natural state of mind is luminosity. We call it wisdom light. Our natural state of mind and its luminosity are indivisible, like the sun and its light. Right now, the luminosity of our nature of mind is covered by dualistic perception or obscurations. So through our practicing, step by step we purify them, and as we do so, the luminosity of our mind radiates like the moon as it increases from the 1st to the 15th. We call these stages of increase the Bhumis. And then these Bhumis are also related to the 4 visionary appearances, which are first the visionary appearance of the direct perception of reality. Second is the visionary appearance of the ever increase, completely experience. Third is the visionary appearance of reaching the limit of awareness. And fourth is the visionary appearance of the cessation of clinging to reality. In brief, these visionary appearances are related to luminosity and Bandu or the drops. So practitioners who reach the first Bhumi realize directly the reality of the nature of phenomena, and at that time they have supreme joy. That's why the first Bhumi is named Supreme Joy. And then these practitioners practice through Supreme Joy, which has many qualities. And all of these practitioners come to know themselves to be illusory appearances. At that moment, those these practitioners reach the second Bhumi. And if they master the practices of the second Bhumi, they reach the third Bhumi. For practitioners who reach this third Bhumi and practice according to this level, there eventually appears another luminosity, a more subtle luminosity, at which point they reach the fourth Bhumi. Then from their practice, there appears wisdom light, and those who become familiar with this wisdom light and spontaneously purify afflictive emotions reach the fifth Bhumi. And then from luminosity appears the forms of Buddhas. When these appear, the practitioners reach the sixth Bhumi. Then those who practice continuously on sixth Bhumi, and they become experienced and liberate afflictive emotions and reach the seventh Bhumi. Practitioners who undistractedly remain on the practices of the seventh Bhumi and increase their realization in this way reach the eighth Bhumi. And then those who accomplish even further qualities than those of the previous Bhumis, and at the Bhumi, they reach the ninth Bhumi. And then for Bodhisattvas who are on the ninth stage, there appears the luminosity of Dharmata. They reach utterly lucidity, and at that time they attain 10th Bhumi. For practitioners who practice continually, all their deluded perceptions are completely dissolved, and at that time many Buddha fields appear, and they reach the 11th Bhumi. And then those practitioners who are not attached to these appearances and whose realization and appearances increase reached the 12th Bhumi. At that time, one's heart chakra radiates a special light, and in the sky 5 groups of light appear, which are like chakras. At that time, one reached the 13th Bhumi. And then those for whom luminosity increases through the appearances of luminosity of the 13th Bhumi, then reach the 14th Bhumi. At that time, they have a wonderful Samadhi. And then they give rise to spontaneous Bhumi, which is 15th Bhumi. And then practitioners on the 15th Bhumi who gave rise to primordial pure awareness reach at that time the highest Bhumi of wisdom or Bhumi of unexcelled wisdom. So this is the 16th Bhumi. In brief, these Bhumis are one luminosity of Dharma nature. But we have to separate them into different Bhumis in order to measure their increase. Otherwise, they all are the luminosity of primordial wisdom. So these Vajrayana paths and Bhumis are related to channels. When the nodes of the channels open, at that time there appear many lights or luminosity. In this mandala of luminosity, there appear many Buddha that fill all of space. That's how, in this way, realization increases and practitioners' experience and purification increases and their experience of bliss, emptiness, lucidity, all of these increase like a vaccine moon. We have to know this about the Bhumi. Actually, these Bhumis each have different names, but they are all encompassed in the luminosity of primordial wisdom. In brief, in the Sutara and the Vajrayana both, we talk about Bhumis and paths. They all do not exist outside. They are internally realizations. So during the Vajrayana path, mainly there are two things we have to give up, which are appearances and fixation. But we cannot give up appearances. So why do we say we have to give them up? It means we have to let the forms of Buddha and the Yidam deities arise for us. This is what we mean by purifying appearances. Often we are able to purify number of different forms and colors. But then, when the things that we like the most appear, we are attached. And then, when the objects we dislike appear, we have aversion. It is the same with sound. When we hear sweet words, we are attached. And when we hear harsh words, we have aversion. And then internally, the thoughts are the same. When we give rise to some negative motivations, then we are unhappy. When we give rise to good motivation, we are happy. As we traverse the Vajrayana Bumis, we have to purify appearances. If we purify these appearances, then we can also purify fixation. There are two ways to purify fixation. The first is to prevent it from happening. Before we create or have thoughts become fixations, we transform them into the Yidam deity's body, Yidam deity's speech, which is mantra, or the Yidam deity's mind, which is our realizations and bliss, emptiness. And if we do this, then our thoughts do not become fixation. Our thoughts just appear temporarily and then disappear like bubbles on the surface of water. Even if the appearances are good, still do not have fixation, so they cannot bind us in samsara. Okay? Or you need band in samsara. Sometimes our wish and actions are paradox. Our wish is liberating, but action is it seems we have to bend in samsara. When samsaric things cannot bind us in samsara, the suffering of samsara cannot cause us suffering in our life. So even if our body is in samsara and our activities of speech and mind are in samsara, we are not suffering. So then we become noble sangha. Since we are grossly liberated from suffering, so the Vajrayana is part of pure perception. In these Vajrayana paths and Bumis, there are subtle differences with the Sutara paths and Bumis. But there are not big differences. You should know that in the Sutaras, the definitions and categories are different. And actually in the Vajrayana, the emphasis is on the paths. They do not talk in detail about the Bumis that much. Of course, they talk, but but some part of the Vajrayana teachings are on the Bumis. That's where I taught on it today. Actually, these Bumis are important to know if we are a guru, then in order to benefit disciples, it is quite good if we know the stage like Bhumis 1 to 16 or 1 to 13 or 1 to 10. Also, it is good for disciples to understand by themselves, where am I reaching, where am I, and which part I have to progress. We notice. That's why it is quite important. That's why I particularly wanted to introduce this. We should come to know the Vajrayana paths and Bumis through the wonderful means of our practice, such as preliminaries. Because as lay practitioners, you are involved in many mundane activities, which you can accomplish with a Vajrayana view. For example, many people are in a relationship, but if you perceive your partner as ordinary, then all of his or her actions are ordinary, and then result will be ordinary, and then all of your actions will be the cause to remain in samsara. But if you see your partner as a deity and hear his or her speech as mantras, then it will greatly benefit you in developing your pure perception. Because you spend a lot of time with your partner, any kind of practice involves familiarization. And familiarization means doing something often, and then finally you become accomplished. For instance, when you learn how to float on the surface of water, immediately start to sink. But after training, you are able to float freely. You don't need to change your body to be able to float on the water. All you need to do is listen to the instructions of whoever is teaching you, and then you practice it, and then you will be free in the water. Similarly, if we don't know these Bhumis are inherent in our minds, then this is like a poor family who has a precious treasure buried under their house. They don't know that these precious things are there, so they don't have enough food and clothes. Then slowly some of them start to steal from others, so they create non-virtues. If they know about the treasure, they could use it properly, especially create a good condition for practicing, so they could create wonderful merit. All tantric paths and Bhumis are included in two, which are the generation stage and completion stage. When we practice the generation stage, there are 5 different divisions, and they are automatically related to the paths and Bhumis. As practitioners of the Vajrayana, we need to gather experience of this. Sometimes in the Vajrayana, holy places are called Bhumis. This reason is actually later I will repeat on that. I mean these all of external things are depend internal mind over mind. So by this way, there are 24 holy places. You can learn about them during teachings on Kalachakra. But here, what we have to know is that Bhumi means luminosity. Actually, in the Vajrayana, there are 2 ways of practicing: yoga with perceptions and yoga without perceptions. For yoga practice with the conceptions, practitioners visualize the yidam deities or other things. This practice is not sealed by emptiness. This is what we call yoga with conceptions. Then in yoga practice without conceptions, practitioners seal their practice with emptiness. This is, for example, giving rise to the realization of emptiness of their bodies or external objects. Then after that, they visualize yidam deities and practice. In any case, all the paths and bhumis are encompassed in these two categories of practice. These are the generation stage and completion stage. During the generation stage, we visualize, meditate, and practice. There are many kinds of practices. But the difference between the generation and completion stages are that during the generation stage, your winds could enter the central channel, abate, and dissolve there. But it is not through the power of your meditation. We call this part the generation stage. In the completion stage, through the power of meditation, is the winds enter the center channel, exist there, and then dissolve there. At this time, bliss will spontaneously start to arise for these practitioners. Usually, when the winds and drops enter in the central channel, for practitioners who have strong desire, bliss arises earlier. And for those who have more anger, clarity arises earlier from the central channel. This is another difference. Those who have more ignorance, emptiness arises earlier. The reason these things are, it seems like how related to them, right? The anger, ignorance, and emptiness, something like that. But in the Vajrayana practice, it has many methods. So that means, for example, if in your ear comes water, you take off that by some water. Usually we try to remove it through some dry clothes and something, but sometimes water helps to take it out. And sometimes if your hands burn by fire, so you are so pain. If you have to reduce this pain, if you try to put on the wind fence, then it's become more painful. But if you show it on the fire, so then it's well reduced. Kind of this, we call it like instructions. So that's where they are. Now I talk, I'm talking here very grossly. So if we talk more subtle, then we have to talk during our practice. We can talk in another time. We can talk more, and then we will figure out how to relate it through our experiences and so on. So there are many categories and divisions in the generation stage. But I will introduce two. These are the categories of subtle and gross. Gross is when you visualize the yidam deities gradually or instantaneously. Visualize one deity. This is the gross aspect of generation stage. Is what sound? Sound is like a bird. Is it? Oh. Hello, where's my yak? In Tibet, we do this in the mountain. Actually, Tibetan people call from far away. For example, my mom called me very loudly because if I am like in some on the small what is called mountain, and then my mom called me from home, come back for lunch, or she ordered me something to do. But here we have a phone, and I think we're not Tibetan also same. In Tibet is same, but we text message or we call phone through. That's where it's very rare to hear like this sound. When we heard some loud sound, we just think this is like some wild animals. But it's good, a good mantra. Okay, so the subtle aspect of the generation stage is when you visualize small drops, and in these small drops you visualize mandalas and yidam deities made of light. A small piece of crystal radiates thousands of rays of light. Similarly, we visualize each drop filled with tiny rays of light in the form of mandala and deities. This we call the subtle generation stage practice. During the refuge preliminary practice, we are discussing on the refuge field. Still, these are grossly, but you don't ignore about grossly thing. Okay, we have to enter step by step. This is a nature way to increase. If we don't learn means I don't know what you understand. If we don't training or practicing like through this way, it's quite hard to accomplish. It's like you have very strong desire to graduate from university, but it is first day to join in the higher school. If you don't learn subjects or step by step, you cannot graduate, right? In a 1 hour. But everybody has a very exciting to highest thing and immediately need something. But then we have to accept nature, law of nature. This is very important. Even sometimes we immediately can realize, but it's not will be certain. The problem is that. Okay, then where are we? Okay, so, and then when you accomplish this gross generation stage, when you visualize idam deities, and at that time you have no agitated mind and dullness, the gross image of the idam deities clearly vividly appears. And you can remain there focused on it for 4 hours. Not only that, but when you close your eyes or turn your attention elsewhere, the image of a deity still clearly appears. If you can do that, then you have accomplished gross practice of the generation stage. And then the subtle practice of the generation stage is, as I said, visualize mandala and yidam deities in a small drop. They appear vividly, and you can remain focused on them for about 4 hours without agitation or dullness. If you can do that, then it means you have accomplished subtle generation stage. But subtle has also subtle. There are so now you should fathom what I mean, this subtle, through your experience. If I talk too much in this case, then you are what is called this? The unclear, right? Anyhow, unclear. But by accomplish, I don't mean completely accomplished. It means that you become stable in this practice, but you still need to increase in this way in order to completely accomplish it. When you completely accomplish it, then you move from the generation stage to the completion stage. In the Vajrayana vehicle, the main movement through the Bumis and paths and the fruition of these practices happen through the channels, winds, and drops. The channels, winds, and drops are also related to the cause and conditions of samsara. And when we have impure perception, they are related to 12 links of interdependence. When we have pure perception, then the practices of channels, winds, and drops are the nature of yidam deities and mandalas of deities, and so on. We have to know something about these, so I will introduce them in part. So first we have to know the cause and conditions of samsara and nirvana. So first, the cause and condition of samsara is mind, which is related to the white and right bodhicitta and the winds. We call these the subtle body. Then the subtle body is the support for the opposite of wisdom, which is consciousness. Right now we are work through consciousness because we only see consciousness. As Milarepa said, I am not seeing consciousness, I am seeing wisdom. That means then this who arises spiritual realization. So the consciousness, we call it the indestructible subtle body. Indestructible subtle body. Yes, indestructible subtle body. Because it cannot be conquered by anything except Vajra like Samadhi. That is why it is called the indestructible subtle body. But this indestructible subtle body is also related to the gross body. So we have to know how this gross body is established. The gross body is also related to the subtle body. This is because of interdependence. Overconsciousness speaking only in terms of relative truth, not Buddha nature or the natural state of mind. How is overconsciousness established? It is established by various imprints. These imprints start to move and expand due to desire and craving, right? Craving. Then they combine with what we call in the Vajrayana vehicle the life force. Life force. Is this life force? So that is how the call ground consciousness. So that is how the all ground consciousness is established. This life force moves into the three realms: the formless realm, form realm, and desire realm. I will not talk about the form and formless realms today. We will focus on the desire realm. The body we have obtained in the desire realm is pretty auspicious. The reason is that it is endowed with 6 elements. These are space, wind, fire, water, earth, and the element of wisdom. And then the beings of the desire realm take birth in 4 ways. These are from mother's womb, egg, warmth, and moisture, and miraculously. And then human beings take birth in 2 ways. During the fortunate eon or the first eon, human beings had 4 special characteristics. After that, human beings were different. First, during the fortunate eon, people took birth miraculously. Their bodies were luminous. They had long lives, wonderful merit. Also, they could fly. Everything was auspicious. Then slowly their merit decreased, and their afflictive emotions, especially desire, increased. So that's why we call desire realm. Then in their bodies, they established organs, sins, faculties, and then they utilized these 5 sins like taste, feeling, smell, and so on. And then slowly their good body, so gross body, was established. They utilized the objects of the 5 sins, and if they like something, they would adopt it. And if they dislike something, they would reject it. Slowly they developed the signs of gender, and then slowly established the right and right groups. Through the power of the right and right bodhicitta, externally the sun and moon were formed. Before they no need, because they have light, right? Luminosity light. So, and then in this way, there was light and darkness. If there was light, there was darkness. So they were attached to good things and had aversion to the bad things. Through attachment and aversion, they slowly give rise to feelings. So this is a little bit about how beings took birth miraculously and lived a human life in the first eon. But the reality is that now we take birth through the womb. We have to know this part. There are three things we have to talk about. First, how we are endowed with the 6 elements. Then how we remain in the womb. And then how we are born. Basically, everything is mind. This is principle. Nothing truly exists outside. But because of the power of familiarization, we are very familiar with the outer illusory things or outer objects. Because of that, then our body and speech are very much related to the outer. So that's why we have to explain about that. Our body and speech are established through our parents, right and right bodhicitta. And then there are 36 elements through which our body is established. These combine through the 6 different tests that our mother eats and drinks. These 6 tests come from the 5 elements. For example, the bitter test is established through wind. Pungent is established through fire. Salty is established through earth. The sweet test is established through fire. The salt test is established through space. In any case, the consciousness meets in mother's womb with red and white bodhicitta. This is the seed of our human body. Then these remain there through the power of the earth element. And then through the power of the water element, it grows. And through the power of the element of fire, it will mature. And through the power of wind, it will increase. And through the power of element of space, it has the freedom to grow and increase. It will not be blocked. And then the wisdom elements belong it, gathered together. In this way, our body is established. And then there are 5 phases of being in the womb. The first is as in oval. Second is as a lump. Third is elongated or oblong. Then fourth is round or circle. And then fifth, hardened. Hardened hard is kind of solid. Hardened. And then the what is called is the fetus start to grow legs and so on. The reason our body increase or grow in this way is that it is stirred by life wind or life energies. For example, first, when our consciousness and our parents' energies gather in the mother's womb, after 1 week, the life wind stir it. That's why it becomes in oval shape. Then during the second week, the life winds stir again, gathering it together, and at that time it becomes a lump. Then in the third week, the wind stir it again, and then it becomes a oblong. Then in the fourth week, this wind stir. All these winds are also a little bit different from each other. They have different names. But in any case, in the fourth week, when these winds stir, the embryo it becomes round. Thus, for 4 weeks, the embryo develops in the mother's womb. At that time, it discards waste and collects the essence of the powers of life. And then it will start to establish channels. These channels grow through the 5 root winds and 5 branch winds. These 5 root winds are first the fertilizing wind, second the downward clearing wind, third the upward moving wind, fourth the pervasive wind, and fifth the fire dwelling wind. At the 5th week of gestation in the mother's womb, the life wind or the life energies wind stairs, and the white drop moves up, and the red drop moves down to the lower part of the embryo. Thank you. I'm speaking God language, so you don't understand the. For sure, not Tibetan, not English. We can create a new language. And at the center of the, again, embryo, the center channel begins to be formed. At that time, the center channel is about half an inch in length inside the embryo. Then the white drop is at the top of the center channel, and the red drop is at the bottom of the center channel. 2 months after the life force winds began forming the center channel, the formation of other channels begins. 200 other channels are formed each day. First, in the heart chakra, the 5 branch and the 5 roots winds gather together, and at radial channels began to be formed. And then in the navel chakra, with 64 radial channels begins to form. And from there, one channel is related to the mother's channel. This is called the red channel. It increases the energy of blood and wind. 2 months after the center channel is formed, the downward clearing wind begins to establish a chakra in the secret place with 32 radial channels. And then slowly these grow. Then 3 months after the center channel has been established, the upward moving wind, left wind, and the element of fire make the upper body complete. But the complete means some grossly complete. And from the life winds, the pervasive wind, which is related to the element of water, establish the branch channels. And then this wind comes up, began to establish a chakra with 16 radial channels at the throat. Then it comes up to the crown and begins to establish a chakra with 132 radial channels. think it's not one. Sorry, it may not 100. It's 32 radial channels, I think. And then in the 5th month, these life winds, the fire-dwelling wind in particular, establish the lungs, heart, and the inside of the organs and channels. So the 5 root winds work in this way. And then in the 6th month, the power of these 5 winds is reduced. And the being who is in the mother's womb start to have the feeling of suffering. So then they start to move their body inside the womb, and through these, the 360 parts of bones and joints are established. In the 6th month, through the element of wisdom, the 2 eyes, which are the Vajra of ignorance or delusion, are established. Then in the 7th month, the element of water established, the earth. This is the Vajra of anger. Then in the 8th month, through the element of fire, the 2 nostrils are established. This is called the Vajra of greed. Then in the 9th month, the water element established the tongue, which is the Vajra of desire. Then in the remaining days, through the earth element, the faculties of the body, which is the Vajra of jealously, is established. Then the eyes see form, which has the nature of quality of water. The ears hear sound, which has the quality of space. The nose smells scent, which has the quality of earth. And the tongue tastes flavor, which has the quality of fire. The body experiences feeling, which has the quality of wind. In brief, for the babies in the womb, every day 200 channels are established. So each month 6,000 channels are established. So during the 9 months in the mother's womb, a total of 54,000 channels are established. For 3 months after the mother gives birth, channels are still being established in the infant's body. After a total of 12 months, we establish 72,000 channels. At the same time, each day 2 channels stop functioning. But some subtle channels continue to grow until the body's life force is exhausted. There are also 40 million. think it's 40 million channels that correspond with the bodies here. In any case, until the 8th month, the fetus has no tongue. So the mother's red channel provides nourishment, and the channels grow in this way. So we don't directly follow the exactly word, okay? In this case, there are something it's very deep to understand. It says something, for example, it starts to explain like a house. It tells about some part of a shape or colors through this way introduced. So the tongues, under Namant, there's no tongue means we have to understand a lot of things there. So anyways, same like that. Here what we say is, anyhow, so then at the 9th month they have tongue, then they start to eat the waste that is around them. They are still in the womb, right? They also start to produce urine. Then they start to feeling hunger and thirst. They start to notice mother's womb is dark and they are uncomfortable there. And they are willing to come out from there. Basically, the body is made up of the inner 6 treasures, which are marrow and bone, sinews, hair, skin, from which comes from sweat, then flesh and blood. Here more than the 6, but some count together. So then there are another 36 body elements. These are first the 6 sense faculties: the eye sense faculty, the ear sense faculty, the nose sense faculty, the tongue sense faculty, the body sense faculty, and the mental sense faculty. Then the 6 elements: earth, water, air, fire, sky, and consciousness. Then there are the 6 sense objects, which are form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and phenomena. And then there are 6 faculties of action, which are the mouth, hands, feet, anus, urethra, and part of droop. Another 6 are speaking, taking, working, and then there are some other things and so on. 6 skandhas, which are form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness, and wisdom. So in total there are 36. In brief, these aggregates and sense faculties make up the gross body and channels. Winds and drops compress and subtle body. All of these appear from the lucidity of a natural state of mind. This is principle, which is temporarily covered by ignorance. Because of this ignorance, it is projected outside, and we see these things aggregates, and so on. And they are impure. But in the Vajrayana, this body is called the incarnate Nirmanakaya. In the reality, this body is Nirmanakaya, but our pure perception, if it is blocked by temporary ignorance, and That's why we see this ordinary body, which naturally is Nirmanakaya that appears from the Dharmakaya. With ordinary perception, we feel that we come from the mother's Banga. Banga in reality is the Dharma Dhatu. So I have briefly introduced how our bodies and channels are established and how the winds work. All the channels are included in 3 main channels and 5 chakras. Through in the Kaju lineage, we often say 4 chakras. And everything is included in them. When we purify the channels through our practice, then they become the Nirmanakaya. When our winds are purified through practice, then they become Sambhogakaya. Then when we purify the drops or bodhicitta, they become the Dharmakaya. So these are the Vajrayana path of practice and how to practice in the generation stage and compilation stage we will discuss in the coming weeks. So today we stop here, and perhaps you think what is related this part of bodies and our practice Vajrayana paths. So they are very much related when we are practicing. So we will more. We can discuss more, and then today is our this Dhamma discussion is related to Vajrayana. So is there this oh, it's very good. So we anyhow, so we all have Vajrayana Samaya. So we have to purely keep them. So if through our ignorance and grasping anything, we made mistakes, then we will purify them through the 14 Montric downfalls. So this is in the Garchin Buddhist Institute's website, right? Under purification practices. Please you check there, and then we will recite these together.
This is the disclosure of the 14 fundamental mantric downfalls. The Vajra holders have taught that the accomplishments follow after the master. Because of that, to mistreat the master is explained as the first fundamental downfall. To transgress the commands of those gone to bliss is said to be the second downfall. To be angry with Vajra siblings is the third point described as a fault. The conqueror taught that to abandon love for sentient ones is fourth. The root of dharma is bodhicitta. To abandon it is fifth. To demean the teachings that are one's own or others' doctrines is sixth. To proclaim that which is secret to sentient beings who are wholly immature is seventh. The aggregate is the very nature of the 5 Buddhas. To abuse it is eighth. To give rise to skepticism about naturally pure phenomena is ninth. Always treating evil ones affectionately is held as 10th. To conceptualize about phenomena that are free from name and form is 11th. To elicit weariness in the minds of sentient ones who have faith is 12th. As for the samayas, not attending to how they are acquired is 13th. To engage in demeaning women who are the nature of transcendent awareness is 14th. When these are abandoned by mantrans, accomplishments will surely be attained. I reveal and relinquish degraded and broken samayas of body, speech, and mind in their fundamental and auxiliary aspects, and every downfall arisen from faults together with their mass of defilements. Please bestow your blessing that they be cleansed and made pure.
Om Bhajasado Samaya Manupalaya Bhajasado Dinoba Tiranda Membawa Sudukayo Membawa Subhajayo Membawa Anurado Membawa Sarvasiddhi Membayan Zazawa Gamma Suzame Sudan Shirang Guru Hong Ha 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 Hoi Bangawen Sarvata Dangadam Bhajama Memes Bhajabama Samaya Sado Vam Bhajasado Samaya Manupalaya Bhajasado Dinoba Dejanda Membawa Sudakayo Membawa Subhajayo Membawa Anurado Membawa Sarvasiddhi Membayan Zazawa Karma Susame Siddhan Shirayang Guru Hong Ha 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 Bangawe Sarvata Danga Damba Samame Mazamba Zabama Samaya Sado Vam Bhajasado Samaya Manupalaya Bhajasado Dinob Tidanda Membawa Sudakayo Membawa Subhajayo Membawa Anurado Membawa Sarvasiddhi Membayan Zazawa Karma Susame Siddhan Shirayang Guru Ha 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 Voi Bangavan Sarvata Danga Damba Samame Mazamba Zaba Ma Samaya Sado Om Bhajasado Samaya Manupalaya Bhajasado Dinoba Dejanda Membawa Sudikayo Membawa Subhajayo Membawa Anurado Membawa Sarvasiddhi Membayan Zazawa Karma Susame Siddhan Shirayang Guru Ha 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 Bangawan Sarvata Danga Damba Samame Mazamba Zaba Ma Samaya Sado Chancho Semjo Rinpoche Ma Che Ba Nam Ji Jer Ji Ba Nyam Bar Me Bar Yang Kone Kondun Pe Var Jo.
May bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not yet arisen. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.
Thank you very much.